All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Very excited for today's, I don't know if I want to call it a live training or an interview, but essentially we are going to be talking with one of our rock star clients, Laura Johns from the Business Growers. I'm so excited to chat with her and have her share her story and her success tips because, like when we met Laura about 6 or 7 months ago, we just had a good feeling about her, and she was kind of starting from scratch, and I'll let her tell the story, but she was kind of starting from scratch. And we typically don't work with people who haven't, been running their agency for a couple of years, but she just had that it factor that people talk about. And we knew that she was going to do something special. But with that being said, she definitely exceeded our expectations and has been hitting those goals a lot faster than what we originally anticipated. But now we recognize, that the sky is truly the limit for her and her agency and her team. And of course, we want to share that with you guys, share her story with you guys. So Laura, with that being said, why don't you start us off by just giving us a little intro about yourself and kind of how you started your agency?
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm really pumped to be here, and I will say, maybe I'll be the business case for why you should look at some of us solopreneurs as potential candidates going forward, because I don't know how I could have done it without you guys. So, and could continue to do it without you guys. So thank you so much. I will say I like to call myself an accidental entrepreneur, but then I'm learning as I meet more entrepreneurs. That's kind of how we all get this way. I don't think anybody starts their career there. I mean, some people do, but I did not. I like safe things. And so, which is not typically characteristic of an entrepreneur, but I like job security and things like that. So I have always, from the very beginning of my career, I took a job. I was actually the babysitter for the CEO of a tech company, and they were starting up and needed marketing. And so I had been accepted to graduate school and decided, I'm going to take a year and see what this working world is like. So I did that and just I deferred my enrollment to graduate school and ended up going back to graduate school, then going back to work for the same company. So I was with a tech company, a tech startup for 9 years that got bought out. For about 3 years after that, when they were acquired by another bigger company, I went from a marketing team of 3 or 4 at the time to a marketing team of 60 in an $8 billion company and global business. So I really feel like that was just as much of a learning experience than the startup was, because I learned how a large marketing operation runs. So I did that for several years. And then while on a business trip, met with a friend of mine who was out of town. We were both in San Francisco. We had dinner. He suggested I come work for him. I was traveling a lot and starting a family, and it just seemed to make sense. So I went to work for another tech company full-time that's based here in Jackson, Mississippi. And after about 7 years of that, my husband took a position. He was in ministry work. So he took a position at a church that was a couple of hours away from where we had called home for several years. And that was just an opportunity for us both. We both felt really good about it, but I wasn't really sure what work was going to look like. Also was pregnant at the time. So I say all that because that's really what started that accidental entrepreneurial journey for me, was really just figuring out what made the most sense for our family. And driving 20 hours a week did not make sense for our family. So we moved, and my boss at the time was kind enough. I mean, when I say leadership that understands and honors life circumstances, I mean, this CEO of the company I was working for just said, put on paper what you need and we'll figure out how to make something work. He didn't say you're going to get everything you want, but he said, we'll figure it out. And for a 12-week pregnant mom soon to be mom trying to figure out her life path for the next however many years, it was just a really kind gesture. So it turned out that going part-time made the most sense. So that's when I started. I was part-time for him. And then I started looking for opportunities locally where we were based at the time. So I didn't have to drive as much. And that's really when I started doing some consulting work. And I think when we had our first conversation, I told you, I've been doing this, but not all out. So at no point during my first, and my company at the time was called the Small Town Creative. I'd moved to a really small town in Mississippi that at the same time was launching an HGTV show called Hometown. So if any of you are in HGTV people, there's a show called Hometown that's based in Laurel, Mississippi. That's where we were. But I was really only interested at the time in like paying the bills and spending time with my family. So I did not hire anybody. I did hire a VA that was in the Philippines, and she helped me just stay organized. But I had no desire to have a staff and a team and lead and manage and do that kind of stuff. I was just like get by mode was really all we were doing. So did that for a couple of years. And then when we found out we were expecting our second son, moved back to the Jackson area just to be closer to family. I went back full time for about a year at the same company I'd gone part-time with. And then after a year, it was like, once you have the experience of owning your own business, that itch came back. But at this time I was done having children. I was pregnant at the time, but I knew that that was going to be our last. And I felt like I had the energy to really do this if I wanted to do it. So after a year of working full time again, decided to do this full force. The same CEO and great leader said, put on paper what you need and we'll figure out how to make it work. And at that time, I really felt like the best thing for me to do was to leave completely and take him on as a client. So, I can't say that I started from absolute scratch and, zero recurring revenue and built it, because honestly, that stepping stone, having something to start with where I knew at minimum I can pay myself, having that as a, a safety net really was a big part of the jump. A second thing, that was a huge thing was that I had because of the transition in COVID, I had in my consulting business experienced a loss in 2020, which was great because I was able to qualify for a PPP loan.
Oh,
which conveniently was honestly, I'm a woman of faith, and I had prayed a good bit about, because again, my husband's in ministry, so a considerable portion of our income and our family income, the responsibility of it falls on me. And I didn't just want to tuck tail and start a new company, even if I could pay myself. I wanted to make sure there was enough cushion. So that was an important, I can't say that didn't contribute to allowing me to take that first step. So I can stop there. That's a really long.
No, this is great. I mean, so like how many of you guys listening can relate to kind of having to go out on a limb and experiencing these ups and downs of trying to start a business? Like if you guys can relate to that, just put a 1 in the comments so that we know that this is resonating with you. So Nick says, Jay says 1. Yes. I mean, you mentioned that you're an accidental entrepreneur. I think that is like 99.99% of people who start agencies. Like we start out kind of like how you did. It's kind of how I got started too. I taught myself how to build websites, and then I started working for an agency that did pay-per-click management, and I started selling for them. And then eventually I got this crazy idea to start the agency, kind of like you did. So talk to us about when you decided to take on your first client, who was also your boss. What were the services that you were offering? Like, what was the arrangement that you guys had?
So interestingly, it was a 25 employees, a fairly small company. We were a marketing department of 1. We were also an HR department that was under the umbrella of the marketing department.
So it was like basically all you, right?
And company culture and retention, customer retention. So it was thank goodness, he's an amazing person. We care about each other, and it was a great, we just had a conversation. Honestly, I will say though, I do not like to disappoint people. And I mean, I had the stomach ulcers that prior to having the conversation, I had all the feelings that you feel before you just know that you're about to let somebody down. And again, he had been so gracious before. I don't know why I was that scared, but so I knew that I was going to have to scale back. And honestly, my passion was marketing. I had been the only marketing person at a tech company that grew to 4 and then transitioned to serve a product set as the global marketing manager for a really big company. And that was my passion, just serving, either sales teams or serving an organization with the right marketing support. And so letting the HR and the company culture and some of those things go, it was a very easy decision and something that he agreed that made sense. Like, let's just take some of these things off of your plate that we could find somebody else to do. And so the arrangement was, and this is another caveat. I had just, and I shared this with you before, Chris, I had just made an offer to a young college student that was graduating at the company I was at full time. So I sent her a job offer, insurance, benefits, all the things for the company I was working at full time. And then between the time she signed the offer and the time she started, I decided to leave the company. So that was kind of one of my parting wishes was, can I have Grace? Can I please have, and that's her name. I needed Grace too, but I needed the actual person, Grace. So he essentially, we contracted to pay a portion of my salary and a portion of hers because he was essentially getting both of us. And the services were everything from, branding, collateral development, continuing, marketing assets for the sales team. We also, at the time, we're doing some lead gen stuff in HubSpot. So doing a good bit of that, managing the relationship with our vendors there, website, full on web support, landing pages, et cetera. And then everything into digital ads and search engine optimization. So it was very easy, again, taking the HR out of it and some other things. It was a very, clear model for an agency, but that's what we started doing for him. So kind of from the ground up, and then, he's still a client today.
Yeah, I think it was a very pragmatic way to start the agency. And of course, there's different ways to launch a business. You hear so much of the talk about like burning the ships, just go all in. And typically a lot of those conversations or that language is used by people who want you to buy their course.
Right.
But, like when I started Dude, I kind of did the same thing. I dipped my toe in the water to see if this is actually going to be realistic. And we started running ads for Dude to prove the concept. And then it worked, and that's when I decided to make that decision. I'm all in with Dude. We were actually already at 10K monthly recurring revenue within the first few months. Yeah. And that's when I decided, this is going to work. And it sounds like you kind of did the same thing. You had a backup plan, you kind of had all your ducks in a row before you decided to launch.
Right.
So, you started out, you call yourself a solopreneur, but you're not really a solopreneur because you kind of started out already with one key employee, with Grace, who I think is also on the call. Hey, Grace.
Making sure I don't talk bad about her.
But what was that like? Because that's actually a major step for most people, is hiring that first person. It's very intimidating. There's a lot of pressure that can come with that as well. The fact that somebody else's salary and livelihood is on your shoulders. How did you jump into that right off the bat? I mean, were you afraid, or did you know what to do?
Totally. Honestly, it was not my idea. I cannot take credit. And, I wish that those of you on the call knew the CEO that I worked for, because he's a great, as far as like generosity and your win is my win. Like, that's how, honestly, like if I've learned anything from him, it's your win is my win. Like, if we can figure out a way that we can both win in this, then, and, for him to say, do you need Grace? And I said, yes, I do. And then he extended the offer to pay a portion of what he had planned to pay her as so of course he's getting out of the health insurance. He's getting out of he's not having to do that, but he did have enough contacts because he was a small business. Now he's at 30 employees, but I was able to call his insurance guy and I was able to call. And so I had everything pretty much lined up so that when I did have a conversation with her, I was able to offer the same or a similar package to what we had originally offered her, because I didn't want to, screw her. So it was very, it was very hard. But again, that PPP loan that I had in my back pocket helped.
Yeah.
And then also, secondly, his encouragement. And I knew how I had done it before under my other LLC when I didn't really want to hire a lot of people. And I knew that that was not sustainable for a growing. I mean, I knew that I was like,
What specifically did you realize
I
from
mean,
that first
working
business?
all the time, I thought, I'm just trying to make ends meet and pay our bills. And, I don't want to grow a team, but it ended up being like, I was the person that everybody called. And some of my bigger clients, I still have great relationships, my bigger consulting clients. I mean, and again, this is like a boundaries thing, but it was a 10 p.m. phone call when I'm on a Friday night when, some of that I was just like, I don't want to be the support, customer support. And when the website goes down, I don't want to be all of it. I want to have a team for that. And again, I have, honestly, again, we go back to the first, what do you call it that I did with you? The first,
Mastermind?
Mastermind. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I did that with you, one of the things that we talk about is, wellness. And I got a Peloton and I got, honestly, like in the better, I'd say over the last 10 years or so, physical and mental, the healthiest I've been in a long time. And when you're having kids, you've got, hormones and all that. So again, but a lot of things attributed, my confidence was at a place where I would say it had not been in at least 5 years. And so the hiring of Grace, paired with, having some resources and also my mental health being in a good place, I felt very confident that I knew that we could take on more clients pretty quickly. So
that's fantastic. Now, another big challenge that people have with hiring people is that sometimes your own personal salary does take a hit too. You have to take you sacrifice a little bit of your own salary to bring on this new person. And then there's the training period. And so a lot of people resist hiring because they don't want to have to go through that kind of like short-term slump, if you will. How did you manage that yourself? Because you were starting out and you had like one client.
I didn't have, I mean, honestly, I was like, that was a non-negotiable for me. Again, with, I will say my husband, we are very much a team. However, my salary reducing was not an option. So, we knew that, this is going to happen. So having, again, him as the first client, we very quickly, and that paid some of my salary. And then we very quickly, contacted, honestly, I don't know if this is the right place to say this, but I didn't have a website when I started.
Yeah, I remember.
And I didn't want to build one. I mean, I had also, since I'd done consulting and my whole life had always, even when I was working full time, I had done nonprofit and church websites myself, Wix and Squarespace sites, just to help people out for $500 a piece or something like that. I'd always done stuff on the side. So I knew enough about WordPress to be dangerous, but I knew I didn't want to do that. And so I'm getting off course, but essentially, I knew that if I could get a couple of websites in the first month, then I could pay myself the salary that I was used to making and also pay Grace.
So you knew the number that you had to make. You knew the salary number that you had to make.
And I knew what I had to make. And that was a non-negotiable. And I knew what I thought I could sell a website for. And, but I knew I also needed help to get a website so that I could make a website. Yeah. So the first website that dude did for me was my website.
Yeah. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, we do that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger point here, is that like we often placed barriers in our own heads as to why we can't get started, or why we can't push forward with something, why we can't hire somebody, why we can't charge a certain amount. And it's completely on our own. It's completely in our own head. And Laura's proof of that, where she just went out and found a way. And there is definitely something to be said when your back is kind of up against the wall and you have to figure it out. That's, what do they say, that desperation is the key of innovation, or something along those lines. I don't know what the term is, but awesome. So, so you have your one key employee, Grace. You've got a client, you've got a couple website projects. Talk to us about the trajectory and how you started to pick up steam pretty quickly.
This is where it gets fun. So Grace and I, neither of us could develop a WordPress website. So when we got our first website, that was the I guess the threshold where I said, okay, I know that I can pay us and pay at least 30 days of dude and got my website off the ground and got another website going. And just did a pod. And that was exactly what we needed, because we also had some design projects early on that we needed. I did probably take on, again, this is, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute, but I really took on whatever at the first, I knew I told my husband, I was like, okay, you're going to carry, and he totally, again, we're a team. He knew that the next 6 months to a year was going to be a lot more of the home weight on his shoulders. And that's picking up the kids and doing a lot of the, the things that we normally would share. So in the same vein, I knew that for the first 3 to 6 months, I was just going to hustle really hard and say yes to everything within reason.
Yeah.
And so so that's what I did. I took on I took on some really stupid, stupid projects and, did, for example, a clothing, dude did this for us, a clothing, PDF, product directory for a clothing line, not at all what I'm.
It was like a design project, basically.
Yeah, like a design, PDF, design project. But somebody that was going to a market needed like a 4-page, design something, just to show people on digitally. But so I did a couple of those things. Again, I was taking on one-time projects, no problem, which I would not do today, but I did then, just to get money in the bank.
Yeah.
So that was the hustle, and it hasn't ended, but I'm certainly streamlining my service a little bit better now. So.
And then you started to go into a niche too, right? Because you had these tech relationships.
Yep.
So you started to go deep into that niche. Tell us about that.
So that was when I looked at the end of my first. So I started in June officially, and then December 31st, after I finished the year. I have a former coworker that's really good with numbers. I'm not at all. I've leaned on Oyuki several times to help me with some things. So I'm not a numbers person. I just like the line that goes up. That's all I really care about.
Absolutely.
There's a line that's going down. I'm like, why is that going down? But so I had a numbers guy look at, my end of year financials, and, I'm a very logical, common sense kind of gal. So I'm like, okay, what customers are making me the most money, and where am I the most profitable, and what services are making me the most money, and where am I the most profitable? So I kind of paired the two, and the one, 100% hands down thing was that my technology clients, whether it's like B2B SaaS clients or, network providers, cybersecurity companies, those were the people that wanted the recurring help, didn't just want the project, they wanted a partner. And they saw value in me. They would refer me to other people, because it's always like, this is every industry, I think, but your cybersecurity guy has a outsourced CFO who also runs his own tech CFO business, and he needs a website, and then they need help, so started getting referrals that way. Went to a conference in Vegas and spoke and got several clients there. So, but all kind of under that technology umbrella. And I really enjoy that. And the reason I know I enjoy it, Grace actually told me, this is why you enjoy it. She was like, because you're most confident when you talk about technology, because you've been doing it for so long. And she said, I love to see the light bulb go off in the brain of a CEO of a tech company who's been saying, this is what we do for 2 decades. And I'm like, but who's Googling that? Nobody. Like, they get, in technology specifically, they get so wrapped up in what they think it is they do because they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And they use terminology that nobody really uses.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm like, but what you really do is this, and simplify it to what, honestly, I'm like, what would somebody be Googling to find you, you know? And when we have those kind of conversations, I get so excited because I've literally been in Denver with a client who's banging his head on the table, like, how have I been missing this for so long? And that's when I'm like, this is really my passion. Like, I love that I'm able to help these technology people who are so smart they can't even think about some of the most simple messaging, you know, components of how to talk
No,
about what they do.
I love that. And, you know, I've heard different ways of picking a niche, but I mean, I think that your way is definitely one of the best. Is that if you already have relationships, if you understand the story and what the challenges that those clients are going through, and you can legitimately solve their problems, that's your niche. You know, like when I going back to how I started Dude, at first Dude was kind of for everybody who needed design and development help. So we had, you know, some life coaches and we had these other people over here and da, da, da. And I would say within 30 days, I recognized I cannot help those people the same way that I can help an agency, because I know the pains that the agencies are going through. I know exactly the things that keep them up at night. I know like how badly it sucks when a developer disappears on you in the middle of a project.
Yeah.
And so that's when we just decided, you know what, nobody else. We're just focusing on agencies. Yeah. That's all that we're going to go after. And then obviously it's working out, you know, pretty well. So
working out for me. I'm glad it's working out.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much for giving me that quote. Necessity is the mother of invention. Yes, very, very true. So, so December, I think it was, you said you met with the numbers guy, but you had gone through our mastermind prior to that. So how did that, specifically when we talk about the pro forma and how to manage your margins and things like that, how did that shape your kind of dream of how you're going to build the agency?
Yes. So I had never had any formal training in any.
None of us have really.
Not how to run a business. I had never seen a pro forma. I honestly was just like, you know, we just talked about, can I pay myself and can I pay Grace? That's my goal, you know, to start. Of course I wanted to grow a business, but so, and honestly, again, kind of coming out of having a second child and in a season where I just needed to kind of focus on how I was going to do this. Oh, I think I froze.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you fine, but
okay.
Your face froze.
I think, let me just stop and restart my video. There we go.
There you go.
I think that it was a blessing that I didn't realize that I needed, because we can always find time to be too busy for taking an hour every week, you know, to work on ourselves or work on how, and honestly, you know, we probably say way too often, you know, things are fine. Things are fine. I'm doing a good enough job, you know. But you know, the group being challenged, talking about the fact that there are so many more components to being a successful agency owner and leader of people than just the revenue number. Yeah. And kind of just the awareness of that, and to remember that, you know, things like, you know, my mental health and my overall wellness is really important to me being a good leader. And I will tell you, Grace, who's on the call right now, she can give us a thumbs up. She will tell you on the days that I don't get a workout in, or on the days where I, you know, didn't get rest or whatever it is, or on the days, you know, there are noticeable differences in my leadership style on those days. So I think just having people who are going through the same thing that you're going through, and then also having, you know, these components to building your business the right way, that I'm not going to go find a pro forma. I mean, I'm not going to, some of you on the call might be able to do that, but I'm not a numbers person. And I'm just like, as long as I'm not in the negative in my bank account.
Yeah. So for those that are on the call that have never seen a pro forma before, it's essentially a financial planning document that you can use for your agency to map out your sales goals, your budgets, you know, your gross margin targets, all that stuff. So we taught that to everybody in the mastermind group that Laura went through. And so when you got that, let's just focus on the performa specifically, because that's something I think that, you really leaned into a lot more than some other agency owners that have gone through our masterminds. How did you use that information? So did you just send it over to your accountant, your bookkeeper, and say, hey, this is what I need you to do? Or like, what did you,
So
how did
I
you use
have
that
a
info?
little, yeah, so I have a little, what I would call like my board, nobody's getting paid, or, really, there's no benefit to them other than there's no benefit to them at all. They just help me. One of whom is the CEO of the company I used to work for. He's got my back. So, and then my friend who's the CFO. And then I have another just business advisor that I'll send stuff to on occasion just to take a look at it and see. So I have used it as a benchmark for me to honestly to know how much revenue I need to bring in every month to keep hitting goals and hiring more people. Otherwise I would have had no insight to that and just looked at the bank account, the number in the bank account. So I have people in, areas that are better at those things than me that do sit on my board. And I meet with them probably once every 2 months. So I started once a quarter. That wasn't quite enough. So I meet with them at least, I have conversations with them all the time, but
Right.
I'll send, usually at the end of every month, I'll send my numbers and just say, here's what it looks like now. I did what I ended up doing was when I decided what products or services I was going to sell, I kind of estimated what I thought I could sell of each product every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that I was a little off on my expectations.
More higher or lower?
Well, in some areas higher, in some areas lower. So
Okay.
like, for example, social media is a very hot, as many of you may know, if you offer this, a very hot product. Everybody wants it, very hard to scale it, really challenging, probably the hardest part of the business, but also what everybody wants. And so what they'll pay the most for, or a lot for. So that was a lot higher than I expected it to be. Also doing, some search engine optimization work, which is a little lower than I thought it was going to be. So it all, comes out in the wash, as they say. So, on a monthly basis, I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing as well there as I thought, but I'm doing a lot better here. So I take it 1 month at a time. I send everybody my numbers just to get thoughts and opinions. And then we're actually going to have our team, I point this way because my team's out here. We're going to have a team meeting after the end of the first quarter, since I've hired somebody else now. Yep. And just kind of talk about like services that they're enjoying doing and serving people on, and what's not working and what is working. So we'll kind of match that to the numbers. But
that's really important too, because your staff, your team members who are doing the work, they have to actually enjoy doing the work, and they'll do it because you tell them to do.
And enjoy the people you're doing the work with. I will
Absolutely.
say, I was at Disney World with my 5-year-old and called a client and fired him because he treated Grace like crap.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. I'm like, not doing it, firing him. And I was actually, yes, we were in the middle of, weren't we doing I think I had a conversation with the group about it in the mastermind, and said, I've got a client that I need to fire. Yeah. And I did. So I've actually fired 2 already. So I want to make sure that people treat our team like I treat them,
Yeah, absolutely. So now the team is much bigger than when you started. So how many people do you have total?
Do I count? Have we talked about my transition with you? I'm not transition, but my progression.
Oh, sure. You can talk about that too. Yeah. So you came into Dude, you got the pod, you had the shared
got the pod in June. And then the pod was like, you're killing us. No, Aaron, who's amazing. You guys basically just educated me on how much we were using the pod. We were overextending the pod. And understandably so. I think, we had lots of active projects going on. Which is a good problem to have. So then we had a conversation, and I was like, do we get 2 pods? Like, how does this work? What do we do? This was September. So we started in June, this was September. And we felt like the best course of action was to add a dedicated employee on your side, which we did.
Mm-hmm.
That changed my life. She's my favorite people on the planet. I've cried to you talking about how great I think she is. So the dedicated employee is very much, I feel like, a part of our team. She's on our team.
Hold on. Before you go into that, what were the responsibilities that she was going to do? Her name's Erica. And so what was Erica going to do for you?
So originally everything the pod did just faster or being more responsive. So we added her to Slack. I will say too, kind of to back it up, one thing I spent a lot of time doing before I started the business was getting my processes outlined and in a system so that as soon as I hired Grace, she knew exactly how I did everything. I recorded my audio. I did videos of everything. And this was before I even had the pod. Then once we got the pod, we did the same thing. So we have a process for every service we offer, and anybody that we hire could walk in day one and figure it out. So we did that. So when we hired Erica, it was, a little design. Pod was doing a little design, a little web development, all of our mock-ups. And so, one thing that was important to me was like, could we get a mock-up a little bit faster to show a quick win for the client? Mm-hmm. She started helping us with some of that. Then just basically dividing up what projects the pod got and what projects Erica got. If it was a patient, if it was a client that I wanted to, if they had a deadline or something specific, it was just a way for us to get something done a little bit quicker. If we were doing social media for a client and they needed a quick graphic change, Erica would be the one to do that. Because again, I'm a self-taught graphic designer, so I do have that skill set and I have an eye for it. But Grace, is mean in Canva. She's really good in Canva, but outside of that, we don't have a designer. So Erica became our designer / mostly design, some development. Then in March, I felt like we actually hired another full-time in February. She started the beginning of February here. So we had the pod, a DE, Grace, and Adara now. And Adara's sole responsibility is client success manager, onboarding clients, start to finish with websites and working. So she's now submitting our tasks to the pod or to Erica. Then we had a lot of websites in the pipeline. And I really felt like we were getting back to the point where we were overwhelming the pod, and now Erica's pretty much strictly doing design, graphic design. And so I felt like we need to have somebody that we can get a quick website fix or change, because now we've built our clients to the point where we have, how many websites, Grace, do you know? We probably have, right? We're probably managing, I would say 25 websites monthly. And so, we have, a number of those every week that have changes, and that shouldn't, not that the pods that takes too long, but, certainly it's nice to be able to knock it out. Like yesterday, we had somebody that had an employee that left the company. They needed them off the website. Yeah. And now we have a DE and a second DE that we've hired that through you guys that can do those things. So he's dedicated to web, Erica's dedicated to design, and we have the pod we're using the pod for mostly mock-ups. Love it. And then
so total, if you're looking at the total head count, we have Grace, we have Adara, you have Erica, Yair, and then the pod, which is like, essentially 150 hours design development, whatever. So is that everybody on the team?
And I have a couple of consultants that I utilize for like technical. I'm not technical, so some tech ops folks. I would say, a handful of, and then we have vendors that I'm using for some things that I also am not good at, like search engine optimization, and some people that do really good Google ad buys. So I'm using some outside resources for that, but full time, that's all.
That's fantastic. And you're coming up, June will be like your official 1 year mark. Mm-hmm.
And we have 52 clients in 14 states.
That's amazing. Hey, give her a round of applause, guys, because that is incredible.
It's great. And
we need to celebrate that. Dude, everybody. So, like when you came to me and you said you wanted to add another DE, Yair, I asked you about the budget. How did you go about determining what it was that you could afford to invest in another team member?
I'm not the person.
Well, I asked you about this too. So,
how did I know? I mean, how did I know that I could afford? I mean, you basically were like, here are your numbers. I mean, I told you, we had a conversation about my numbers, and this is where I'm like, I want to give myself a raise. Can I do it? I don't even know. I'm really not a good person at this, but I knew, I mean, again, because, there are fewer, much fewer. I'm in a state, it's Mississippi. It's a wonderful state, great place to live, amazing quality of life. There are not a plethora of web designers and developers here in Mississippi.
right.
And if there were, I don't think I could scale and be I know I could not scale and be as profitable if I were to hire somebody. It would probably be somebody that didn't live in Mississippi, that lived in a different state. And they would probably cost me, I mean, I don't even know, $60,000, $80,000. I don't know. So I knew I couldn't afford that, and continue to scale and pay my people, my other full-time folks. So, I don't really remember what my answer was. I think you just said, yeah, you can afford it. I was like, okay.
Well, you learned this in the mastermind, the gross margin targets and things like that. And
yes, I knew. I did know. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. For every service that I offered, I knew what my profitability was in that service. So I still, do what I call marketing consulting services, but I only do it under a packaged umbrella. So now I'm shifting again from serving everybody, doing project-based, to serving tech only. And now I'm moving into, I have A, B, and C. And if you fit halfway between A and B, you got to pick A or B, So I have packages now where I know what my margin is in each package. But yes, and when we added our second DE on, I knew that my profitability on a website was X amount. So I knew how many websites I had to sell to be able to afford it. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, and we don't even have sales. I mean, we don't even have anybody selling for us. Thankfully, we don't have to yet. So, and maybe whenever.
I mean, this is amazing. So talk about, and guys, if you guys have questions, please just pop them into the chat as we go. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask Laura a question. Moving forward, the agency's growing like crazy. You've got some really big clients coming in. You're going to break that 7-figure mark very, very soon. I don't know, maybe you broke it already.
No.
So what are you forecasting for the agency moving forward? Like what's the business growers going to look like on your 1-year anniversary?
Well, my goal is to be $1 million business by the end of the year, which I think will totally happen. So, now we're at 60, a little over 60 and recurring. That doesn't count non-recurring. So I'm like over here with the calculator. So that's $720,000.
720. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So my goal is to be $1 million business. I do think that, what's funny though, is that, my password to everything, y'all don't go log in anything, but it reflected my goals. So I put my password to log into stuff to reflect my goals. And I surpassed that like month 2.
Awesome.
So, but my password is still that because it's kind of,
you got to update it now.
Painful. I know. So, so really, I mean, my goal is to be, and honestly, I say to be $1 million business before the end of the year. Yes, that's a great goal. Probably going to happen hopefully by the summer even. But really, and this is in our core values, I want to empower women to, and this is not, again, I've said twice, my husband is my partner in life, like could not do life without him. But I did for 31 years, I was going to say 20. I met him when I was 27, but, I have an employee that is married and Grace is not. I want to keep hiring as much as I can. If it's a guy that has the skill set, I'm not opposed to hiring men, but I would love to continue to hire women and pay them as much as I can pay them to do good quality work. And also just in technology, like there are not a lot of women in technology. And I
Yeah.
think, I think that, I mean, there are some, and I'm in some of these women in technology groups, but just to continue to grow personally and professionally, women who feel empowered to go to work every day and get excited about what they're doing, and also feel like they can change the world. Because even though I'm, down here in Mississippi, and we're getting to, travel. I was in San Diego last week. We're getting to really make an impact all over the country, and that's really fun. So
I love that. I think that's really important too. I heard you talk about this in front of Grace, so I know that she knows about your mission as well. That's something that I think a lot of agency owners kind of forget, is that, you want to have a mission that's even bigger than the agency. We're not just here to build websites and drive traffic to these businesses. Stand for something, and Laura is working to empower other women to achieve their dreams in business. I think that's amazing. The other thing, and I'm going to get to the questions as soon as I finish this, so keep popping them in the chat. But the other thing that has been amazing for us working with Laura is that she's unbelievably coachable. And I find that a lot of agency owners who come in and they've had, and I'm speaking specifically about guys, they come in and they've done, $250,000 in revenue, and then they automatically think that they know everything, and they lose that humility. They lose that ability to constantly be learning from everybody. And I think that that's something that really helped you, and it definitely sets you apart. And it's one of the reasons why you've gotten so much success in such a small amount of time, is that you're very open-minded and learning from people and developing those relationships and then applying what you learn. It's just amazing. So like, again, hats off to you. Huge round of applause and congratulations. So with that being said, let's get into some of these questions. So Juliet asks, how do you find clients? I know that's a question, especially for newer agency owners. How do you find clients?
So that is tough, because I haven't had to go find them yet. So
why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that is?
I get a lot of referrals. And again, when you work in tech, when you do have a specific industry that you're working in, a lot of times these industries are very incestuous and they all know each other, and they've all worked together before, and they all, so, and I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that I have not yet, but, and again, Mississippi is a small place. So when I started, I had already done some consulting work. I had some good, folks in my back pocket that I had coffee with. And I mean, honestly, I spent the first 2 months of starting my business having coffee with everybody that I had, connected with and a while back, that I had, reconnected, that I hadn't connected with since I had my second son, and kind of just came back to the world. And so had a lot of those, and got a lot of referrals early on. Then when I switched to technology, and I haven't even gotten to the place where I've asked a client. I know there's, people that practice there at the end of a call, is there anybody
ask for a referral?
I haven't had to do that yet. Even I've met a really good lead gen partner that kicks ass, and we both refer each other business, because I don't want to do anything that she's doing. She doesn't care to do anything that I'm doing. So she's actually been a great resource and referred me a lot of business, and she's using HubSpot and other CRMs to do email marketing, which is not something that I do. So really just referrals so far, but I'm sure the day will come, and my goal is to start. I just got a really amazing video that I put on my website that I'm really proud of. And my goal is to probably, when I'm ready, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet, but when I'm ready to go ahead and start trying some LinkedIn ads, to get folks to a landing page to see if I can drum up some business that way, but I'm not quite ready for that yet.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing is that you're getting your clients results, that they're all happy. And if you can get your clients results consistently, then they're going to continue to refer you business. I mean, it can be the easiest thing to sell.
Right.
Agency services can be the easiest thing to sell. And then you've productized as well.
Right.
So that makes it a lot easier for them to digest. Awesome. Right. All right, let's get to the next question. And this kind of dovetails on what you just answered to, but Omi asks, Omi says, thanks for sharing, Laura. Do you have any salespeople on staff or an ongoing sales marketing program? So I think the answer to that is no.
No is the answer, but I know that I'm sure I will build that in the future. It just hasn't been a focus quite yet.
Great. I tell everybody, like, until you reach that $1 million mark, I still think that you should be involved in every sale.
Right.
I think
Yeah, and I
it's really
totally am.
important
And
because you're going to learn.
I'm still doing my own invoicing. Like I'm still managing the proposals and the invoices. And I have, again, that was part of the investment that I made early on to systemize. I use a CRM called Dubsado,
Mhm,
which is actually for creatives, but
mhm.
I used it back when I did the small town creative business. And so I'm using it still, and it has beautiful proposals. And I use that for all of that. And I'd set that up, I set my packages up from the very beginning. So I don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, it takes probably 3 minutes to do a proposal.
Perfect.
So
Brian asked, can Laura talk further about her ABC monthly packages, how they're structured, what's included, and then
sure.
a rough, low and high price range?
Yeah.
And what about the packages has resonated with her tech clients?
Yeah. So I'm just getting into that. So I can't say with a whole lot of experience, but I did decide the packages based on this. This is not performa based, but based on the proposals I sent, that I was like, there's no way they're going to pay this. And then they quoted, then they signed it, again, probably
So
it's
you should have charged more.
that. But no, it's called Dubsado. Robert just asked me the software. It's called DUBSADO, Dubsado. No, but I basically my high is what my highest client pays me right now. Which I don't care. I mean, it's $8,500 a month. That's my highest client. But we're doing we're doing everything, which again, as we grow and evolve, I'm very heavily involved in these clients that are, our top tier. And, I don't plan to always be, and my goal would be to hire somebody that can onboard and do strategy and everything for them going forward. But right now that's me. So, and then, I kind of backed it down from there. So I don't know if that helps, but, the way that I package is when I see somebody that is paying me, and that does not include ad spend, by the way. So if they're paying me that much, that's for the services we're providing, but we are their full service marketing team. And then I'm their CMO. So I'm sitting on weekly strategy calls, and my whole team is executing, and, the whole 9 yards. That middle package I take out. So that would be branding, messaging, social media management, search engine optimization, digital ads. Scale it back and take the digital ads and the SEO out. That's my middle package. And then my first package, that's like a $6,000 package. And then you go down a little bit from there, and I do just the branding, messaging, and social media. And that's the $3,500 package. It's the first package.
I love it.
And that, again, my clients in Mississippi maybe wouldn't pay me that. But, and honestly, you get to this sweet spot, and I hope that some of you are there too, or will get there, but you get to this sweet spot where you are like, okay, these types of clients are a pain in the ass, and I don't really enjoy doing this. So my packages now cost more and, and I'm taking this out of it or whatever. So that's kind of, I feel like I've already done a little bit of that probably around every 3 or 4 months since we started, and we'll continue to do that.
And then there was a second part of that question is the profitability. So how do you determine the profitability for each of those packages?
So I have nailed down a cost for each product in each package. So I know if the package one has 3 design pieces per month and social media management, it costs me this much. And I include my cost for, Erica is my designer. So I include a cost, for her, and I include a cost for, phone calls that Grace is going to be on with the client to figure out what to put. And I include, if they want us to write them, that's actually the thing I hate the most is writing or figuring out who's going to write it. But if they want us to write them, then that's a little bit more, but I include all the cost in that by product. And then if I know these 3 products are in package A, it's going to cost me this much.
Perfect. Yeah. Help? And I mean, that's something that we talk about actually quite a bit in the masterminds is what should you be allocating towards fulfillment labor, your cost of goods. Yeah. The target is 30% so that you have a 70% gross margin. So, this is the thing is like what we teach in the masterminds is not the only way to do things. And Laura and I have talked about this prior. It's, because you were kind of joking, like, and I know it's not necessarily what dude teaches, but at the end of the day, all that matters is that it works for your dreams and your business and your lifestyle.
Right.
And there are some foundational like things that are applicable across the board. Like obviously you have to sell things and be able to get the projects done for more than what you sold them for, or for less than what you sold them for, right? Like you have to have some margin, but you've been able to figure it out your own way.
Yeah. And there also maybe, I say those are my tiers. Those may not work for everybody. They may not work for me very much longer. I mean, it just depends. You have to kind of weigh out like that. That's the cost for me right now. But as soon as I hire a senior, somebody I'm trying to, duplicate to go, as soon as I sell something, to pass it on to a manage start to finish, like, Grace only has so much bandwidth. I have somebody that's managing, the pod in our task right now, but my costs are going to go up too. So, I mean, those numbers may not work for some of you sitting in here right now, and it may not work for me very much longer. I don't know.
Well, if your baseline package is 3,500, I think you're in a pretty good spot, because this is another challenge that I see with a lot of agencies, is that we don't charge enough. How many of you guys got inspiration from Laura when you heard her pricing and you're like, oh man, I need to be charging a lot more?
Yeah.
If that resonated with you,
put a 1 in the chat. I mean, we bust our asses though. I mean, like we are, I will say there's not a client that has a change on a website that it doesn't get handled the same day. Hardly. Like, I mean, and again, maybe we're not going to be always my hope. And this is why I added my second DE when I did, was we didn't quite need him, but I didn't want my clients to have to suffer because I had not prepared to get ahead of the workload. Yeah. So as long as I'm able to, I want to be so ahead of the workload that we can serve our clients better, because how many of you have heard, well, I can't get anybody, the guy that did my website can't make a change till next Thursday, and or died, or whatever. Like there's so many people out there that have people managing their websites that they can't get a hold of, and that's just like hard for me to believe. We have a help desk; it goes straight to our Slack channel. Adara does a thumbs up on the Slack channel, and it's handled. So. I think that that's something to be said too, is that, maybe that's our pricing sounds like a bit of a premium. I don't know, but I know that when a client calls me, I answer, and I know
it's a matter of value, right? There's so much value on the fact that you're very responsive, and that they can actually get people on the phone, and that you'll go and have meetings with them, so the value of that far exceeds the cost that you're charging.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've only got a couple minutes left. So those of you who are on, if you have a last minute question, please pop it in. Let's see. Oh, there was two more that came through in the chat. What is the skill set of your DE? Web, graphics, or just dev? So you have two of them. So
well, Erica is a bit of a unicorn.
Yeah. Well, you said you needed somebody who had what we call a designer developer. So we found Erica. She has a little bit of both. I think she's stronger on the design side.
She's great at all of it. She is doing mostly design now though. So she's mostly my graphic designer, but she can also do a quick change on a site or something like that if she needs to. And then our new DE does strictly development. And then the pod does a little bit of everything.
Everything. Yeah. That's like the perfect kind of mix, because you have all those different resources.
Yeah.
But man, we didn't expect you to get there that fast.
Me neither. My husband's like, whoo.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, Chris Bates. Hey, Chris. Hey.
So Chris is the one who I think who introduced us, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
I know. I think I knew that Chris
friend.
worked with you guys. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, hey, Chris.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. I have one final question for you. How old are the kids again? 5 and 2?
5 and 2. I'm putting my email in the chat too if anyone wants to email me.
Oh, perfect.
5 and 2. Levi and Wyatt.
So for all those parents out there that have young kids, or kids of any age, really, what's the advice that you have for them, trying to run your agency, trying to grow your agency? What would be the advice that you have for agencies, agency owners who are also parents?
Yes. Don't get in your head what it's supposed to look like.
In what way?
Like, don't have a picture. I have, for those of you that are working moms, particularly, there's a podcast that I do called The Home and the Hustle for working moms. So feel free to check that out. That's all we talk about is how to do it. You know, basically number one, I create rules for myself and keep my laptop in the car until my kids go to bed. So like simple things like that, you know, I have boundaries that I did not have before, but I do now. When you have kids, it creates lots of boundaries. But also, like, sometimes it has to look like an open screen in the car, in the carpool line. And if your client's not okay with that, I'm not the girl for you. You know, I'm a mom first, always. I'm a wife first, always. And, you know, so I think that when I had my first business, I thought it had to look like this, and you have to do it this way. And you can't get on the call with a baby screaming in the background. You just can't do that, you know? And I think COVID has helped a lot in that way. But I honestly, like, I'm a mom of two, I'm a wife, that comes first. If we have a conference call, you know, I've been on the phone with these top executives from, you know, who knows where, with a kid screaming in the background. And I'm like, I'm good. Y'all good? I'm good. Like, so I think just letting yourself, just removing all of the obstacles that tell you that it has to look a certain way. Your business can look like whatever your business needs to look like for you. It's your
100%.
business. So
100%.
that's really
Fantastic. I love that. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining. Hey, if anybody's listening and you're not yet a Dude client and you want to learn more about what it is that we offer and how we can potentially help you get to the level of success that Laura is experiencing, we'd love to have a conversation. You can just go to our website, dudeagency.io, and sign up for a call. Laura, amazing. You are absolutely amazing.
No,
Congratulations.
I could not do this 100%. And you're not paying me to say this. I could not do it without you guys. You've been, I mean, honestly, instrumental in my success. So I thank you.
Well, thank you.
My success is our success.
Absolutely. Right. And Laura did drop her email in. So if any of you have any questions or whatever, is it okay if they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So Laura@thebusinessgrowers.com. And then if, you know, I'll send out the recording, everybody. So if you want to watch it again, you can. All right. Thanks again, Laura. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. The rest of you guys, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Joseph. Bye.